week as Lisa and I go through LaVenture's Helm station and all the control heads. Last week, you'll remember, we went through LaVenture step by step, all the rigging, running rigging, standing rigging, the winches, all the controls, and sail trim, and terminology, and getting the sail up and down. But join us this week and learn how we control the boat under sail and navigate.
It's been a long, hard season. I'm feeling weary to my bones. I guess that's my reason. I packed my bags and now I'm gone. Somewhere between the sun and the deep blue sea, that's where you find me, tender red.
So, Lisa, you had some questions on the Helm station.
I just would like to review it and then kind of go through what you're looking at while you're making a plan of where we're going. And I wanted to just kind of have an overview of it so that people coming on our boat know what the Helm station, what's all involved in it.
Yes, and we have our upcoming summer trip, so we'll have footage underway using a lot of our controls here at the Helm station. But Lisa wanted to kind of do a basic run through on it, which I think is wonderful. So we're going to do that this morning. So our main piece of control equipment is our Raymarine 12-inch chart plotter. And on this chart plotter, we use Navionics software for the Bahamas, Caribbean, and the East Coast. And this is the unit that we will set up our routes and mark great anchorages and spots that we visit. When we find a great place to anchor, we always mark that so that if we come back, we know exactly where there's good holding and just a great spot to be. And the interesting thing on our system is all of them are programmable and shareable. So in the case of our chart plotter, in the middle of the display, we have the depth always showing because we're in the Bahamas and we go through a lot of shallows. So that's in big numbers on our chart plotter as well as the where we're at. And also we show speed over ground. Speed over ground is the GPS speed reading. So that's our actual speed. So that calculates not only how fast we're going through the water, but if there's current pushing us, that adds to it. So it's our real speed.
Okay, so where do you see that?
So that is right here. You see your depth, and then if we were underway, it shows 0 knots, but it would show our actual speed over ground via the GPS. So with that, let's go to the control heads, which I know you're very interested in. The first one next to the chart plotter is our Raymarine autopilot. And we use this a great deal underway, especially on a passage, because we are on a tack or a course, sometimes same one for hours, because in the islands or on the ocean we have trade winds and they're blowing from the same direction sometimes for days. So we're on a tack, and so we set our course on this. And Lisa, we have this rotary control, which you know, which we can actually steer the boat.
So I'm going to turn this, and this is actually going to turn the direction we're going if we were
underway, yes.
Because right now we are at our slip, and so we're at 61 degrees.
So that's the way the boat's headed right now. And the interesting thing is we have our autopilot steering on a magnetic course, and it matches up with our compass that's just ahead of, on top of the Helm station here. So our compass says 61 degrees and our control head autopilot says 61 degrees. So you're right, it's showing the way the boat's headed, and then as we adjust, we're adjusting our magnetic course.
So we just turn to the right.
Right, to steer to the right.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So we're going to increase our degrees, and we're doing that.
Right.
Okay, and then we have our auto, and our standby.
That's a great item to point out, because when we're in standby, our wheel is active, so we are actually steering with the wheel. Once we press the auto button,
It's going to go to whatever
then it
degrees are
takes
posted.
over our wheel, and we have a hydraulic control system for our autopilot, which is located in the transom on the port side. So
And you don't want to fight the autopilot.
we do not. So once we have it in auto, we really don't want to touch the wheel. Once we hit standby, then it releases the wheel, and then we can steer as needed.
Okay, let's go over here.
Oh, one other item, the reason that we have an autopilot control head with a rotary control is that at night we can just feel for that rotary control if it's dark pretty quickly to steer the boat. Many autopilot control heads have buttons and they're not lit, so at night when we're doing a passage through the night on the ocean, we can't always see the different buttons to change course for the autopilot, and the rotary control we can just feel with our fingers very quickly.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on over here. So it's going to tell us where our wind is coming from. And it's coming from 149 degrees, which is southwest.
So,
West, southwest.
well, we would then match that up.
Southwest.
That's just showing
South-
us the
southwest.
direction. We would match it up with the compass if we wanted to determine which way it's coming from. This is just showing relative to the heading of the boat.
Let's take a moment and discuss apparent wind versus true wind, because our control head is actually set to show us apparent wind, which is the wind that we actually sail by. The true wind is, say, coming more to our beam, but our boat is moving, so it's creating forward motion, which is creating wind. So our apparent wind is the actual wind that we see in our sails, because it is affected by our forward motion. The faster we go, the more the apparent wind moves forward. That is why we have our control head set always to the apparent wind angle and speed. In summary, this is the wind that we steer by and that we sail by.
So what does this mean? This means what type of reach would we be on if we were sailing right now with the wind coming from our aft quarter there? It's not quite behind us.
It's coming from our port.
Right. So that means our sails would be, if it's coming over our port aft, our
It
sails
would be out on the starboard side.
correct. And we would be on what kind of reach? We'd be on a broad reach.
Be on a broad.
And the reason we're on a broad reach is because it's coming slightly to our aft quarter back there.
Okay.
And it's not coming behind us. So you're right, we're at 150 degrees there. So we'd be on a broad reach sailing. The sails on the starboard side.
Okay, so when it says the speed, this isn't speed over ground. What is it?
No, so that's a great question. So on this control head, it's showing us speed, direction of the wind, and it's also showing us the speed of the wind. And then it's showing our speed based on the paddle wheel underneath the boat in the water. So it's showing our speed through the water, how fast we're going through the water, but it doesn't take in consideration if there's a current pushing us. That's why speed over ground is actually our more accurate speed.
So you can see the knots right under here, under this little control, because it doesn't say anything here.
No, this is strictly for wind. So this is showing us the direction of wind, and
Oh,
it's
and how many
showing us
knots.
how many knots the wind's blowing.
Okay.
This is at 0 because we're not moving through the water at all.
Okay.
So it'd be 0. Now,
Okay.
when the paddle wheel matches our speed over ground, it means that there's no current of any kind.
Okay.
And then above that is also another reading of the depth. We have then below that control head, we have a third control head that shows the depth. because when we're in the Bahamas in shallow waters, we want a really big display. We want to know where we're at in the depth. And we're also comparing the depth to the contours on the charts. The charts have lines for different depths. And so if we look at the chart and there's a contour line for 8 feet, and we look at here and it's 7.9 or 8 feet, that also kind of confirms where we're at on the chart.
Okay, let's go over this now. Let's pretend like we're going to make a course.
Yeah, well, I can show you some courses.
Our first step in setting up a route for a passage is to go to Predict Wind. There I enter when we are leaving, where we are going, the approximate route that I would like to follow, and their supercomputer in New Zealand then figures out, regarding the polars on our boat, the parameters, the weather we will encounter, the direction, waves, everything is accounted for depending on different weather models, and it gives us a suggested route as well as an ETA. We are now ready to enter a course in our Ray Marine chart plotter based on the route recommendations from Predict Wind, as well as our own local knowledge and information regarding weather, currents, waves, etc. We then enter this information and we are off on our passage and headed for Port Canaveral. In this case, we are headed down the central coast of Florida. We have passed Jacksonville, Florida, and we are right on course, and we are headed through the night and then into Port Canaveral late the next day. We also have an iPad that is tracking our trip at the same time navigation station inside the salon. This is showing the track that we have been on and also projects our forward track. Thanks for joining Lisa and I this week on Helm Station Basics. I hope you learned a little bit about how we control and navigate LaVenture. Join us this summer on our summer sailing adventure as we get more in depth on the Helm Station sail controls. Have a great week, everyone.
To start the rebuilding of life, the roads that lay open are many when the old one's gone under the knife.